to Canucks After Dark. Here are your hosts, Parker Hallowell and Clay Emo.
Good evening, Vancouver, and welcome back to Canucks Before Dark tonight. It is 7:30 here. We're taking it on a little bit early today, but of course, we're coming to you live here across the world, whether you're in Australia, Taiwan, a couple of reviews we're going to get to later from those places, and of course, joined as always, as always by Canuck Clay, who is about to have a birthday in about 4.5 hours. So happy early birthday.
Well, I thank you, my good friend Parker. Yes, I am turning 47 years old, and I'm excited to get to another year. And yes, I'm not double your age anymore, but I guess that ended when you had your birthday a few weeks ago. But we heard you cough, and I know because you're rushing around a little bit. Why don't you tell the viewers why we are streaming a little earlier today, why it's Canucks Before Dark?
Yeah, so I have a hockey game of my own tonight at 9:30. So we had a couple options. It was either we do it on Sunday or Tuesday or earlier today. And of course, Clay with the Father's Day Sunday, birthday Tuesday, those don't really work for him. So trying it out a little bit early tonight. So everyone who was able to make it, thank you guys for joining as always. And of course, if you miss any part of the show, you have to leave early or anything like that, it's all up in podcast form. And kind of a slow week for the Canucks this week. Not a lot of news really breaking, so we might need your help in the chat with some topics later on if we get to that. But we're still going to go the full hour as always. First day of summer today. It is a hot one, and I am already sweating, so it's going to be a good show.
Yeah, and as I continue to wipe my eyes, no, I'm not getting emotional that Parker has to leave for his hockey game, and I know he'll be fine. I think as soon as I turn my ring lights on, like this happened to me last night too, I start to get like my eyes start to water and stuff. Or maybe I just got to get my eyes checked out or something. I still look good, but I'll make it work.
Yeah, the bright lights in the dark room. So we hopefully we'll have a good show for you tonight. We've got quite a few things to talk about, even if they're not, sort of front of mind right now for the Canucks. Things like the expansion draft, which is only about a month away. So, get that circled on your calendars because the Canucks are going to lose somebody. So we're going to talk about who we think might be on the chopping block here. And let's be real, the Canucks are in pretty good position going into this expansion draft with the names they do have. We'll be talking about what the Canucks need to do in the offseason, because the fact that they don't have a lot of pieces to lose in the expansion draft, kind of a good thing, kind of an indictment. So we'll talk about, what holes they have to fill. We'll talk a little bit about some AHL stuff that came out earlier in the week, of course. And if we have time, some playoffs and whatever you guys want to talk about later on as well.
Absolutely. And Parker, just thinking about your hockey game. How are you feeling, by the way? Like, are you going to perform like the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight, or are you going to perform like the New York Islanders?
There's no way of telling. My legs are going to be a mystery. Going into, haven't skated in 9 months or so, and neither has the other team, which is kind of a blessing for us. So it's going to be fun.
What do you do to stay in shape? What have you been doing for the past pandemic year and a half?
Some gym, but a lot less than normal. Lots of golf to try to just get a little bit of cardio back, just walking a lot. But other than that, I am not where I should be. So it'll be a battle.
Well, if you want to shoot me, I'm a good friend. Shoot me a text after the game. Make sure you tell you're still alive and everything.
Yeah, we'll hope that I make it. All right. Let's take a look here. First thing I want to do, leading off the show, we got a couple of more reviews on the Apple Podcast platform. So if you haven't already, go leave a 5-star review for us. We'll read it out on air. I'll read one of them right now. First one is from JWoo829 in Taiwan. Saying, avid listener from Taiwan, keep up the great work, boys. Thanks for all the awesome episodes. Flexing emoji. Thank you very much for the review. Obviously it was a couple weeks ago, just never got approved until now. But really cool to sort of see the far reach that we're starting to have, which is super cool. So thank you for that. And let's jump in to our first topic, which you put on the list at the top here. Let's talk about it. Let's talk a bit about the expansion draft. Obviously, like I said, the Canucks are at a pretty good, pretty reasonable position going in to the expansion draft. cap space wise, not so much, but personnel wise, they're probably in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll give a very, very quick primer for those of you that are in the chat. Basically, every team has a chance to protect either 11 guys, 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, 1 goalie, or you protect only 9 guys, but it can be any combination of 8 skaters and 1 goalie. And people will do that. If you have more than 3 good defensemen that you want to protect, then you opt for the latter. So you can protect 4 or 5 D-men as opposed to only 3. But I think, Parker, the general consensus is that the Canucks are going to go with the former, the 7-3-1. Is that fair to say?
I think that's probably pretty fair, right?
Yeah.
The only time you would do the 8 forwards or 8 players and a goalie instead of the 7 forwards, 3D and a goalie is if you really have a 4th defenseman that is more valuable than like your 5th best forward, basically, is what it has to be. Which for some teams, a top 4D is more important than maybe their second line winger, especially if maybe they're on a bad contract or something like that. But yeah, for the Canucks, it makes the most sense. Protect the most players. And then, the Canucks don't really have 4D worth protecting, to be honest. So yeah. I don't think they're going to be in too much trouble there.
Yeah, they don't have to protect Quinn Hughes nor Jack Rathbone because of how inexperienced they are. So that does put the Canucks in a really good position on defense. And for people saying, well, what does it mean to leverage your draft position or your expansion draft position? It means that they can go after a team like a Nashville or Carolina or Winnipeg or any team that may have expansion issues. And they can say, hey, we will take this player off your hands so you don't lose them to Seattle for free. And maybe you get a draft pick or a prospect from us out of it. Now, it's got to make sense for both sides, but that's kind of what I think that's what people are talking about when they're talking about leveraging their strong position, given that we don't have a lot of strong guys that we need to protect. Once you get to the bottom end of the forwards and D, it thins out pretty quickly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can sort of look down the list and it's like, yeah, you're gonna protect Besser. You're gonna protect Horvat. Yeah. You're gonna protect Miller. The clear obvious, the clear obvious ones. And then you get down the list and you're like, oh no, you're looking at Gadjevich, Highmore,
right.
Lind, McEwen, right? And even then you'll probably get to protect one of those guys if there's one you really want to hold on to. But at that point, it's like, okay, well, you can go out and there might be a team, with their 8th best forward, and they can't protect them, and they're going to lose this guy for nothing. And you're going to say, well, we'll make a deal with you. We'll get him, out of the bargain bin, so to speak. And we're going to lose again, one of these guys to the expansion draft, which is, so inconsequential in the grand scheme of things, right? Like you're talking about, you're talking about a guy who you should be able to replace in unrestricted free agency for cheap, if everything goes to plan.
So speaking of which, if we agree that Demko is going to be the goalie that we protect instead of Holtby, if we agree that it's going to be Myers, Schmidt, and Juolevi on the back end, and then you expose Bowie because you don't have to protect Hughes and Rathbone, and Edler and Hamonic are free agents. So I'm going to ask you, Parker, if we agree also that the top 6 forwards are locks, the big 4, Pettersson, Besser, Horvat, Miller, then Tanner Pearson, we've heard unwritten into his contract, unwritten, but basically agreed on that we'll protect him. And let's say we want Tyler Mott because we love what he brings to our bottom 6. Of those 4 guys that you mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned them already, between Highmore, 1 year left, traded him for Gaudette, and Lind and Gadjevich, the 2017 draft picks, and I think they're 2017, and then Zach McEwen. Of those 4, if it's one of those 4, who do you protect and who do you think we lose if it's not one of the forwards, though?
McEwen really wasn't that great this year. And if it was a year ago, I would have probably said McEwen or Lind, and both of them have kind of shown that they're probably fairly expendable at this point. And I mean, look, I'd rather give up on McEwen than Lind at this point. He's 2 years older. And less of a ceiling, right? Like McEwen can probably slot in on your 4th line at any time, right? But that's also a very replaceable position to fill. Cole Lind, there's like a very small chance he gets everything together and maybe can be a 2nd, 3rd liner. Most likely he's just going to, that he maybe just doesn't make the NHL, ends up in the AHL and just sort of a tweener. And at that point, well, it's like, okay, well, you can get a million guys to fill in that McEwen spot anyways. Whether it's a Tyler Graovac, who they seem to be pretty infatuated with right now, or, there's countless others that you can basically pick up for nothing.
Right. Okay, so it sounds like you like the Canucks to protect Lind over McEwen, which I agree with. When you throw Matthew Highmore in the mix, does the fact that we traded him for Adam Gaudette, does that have any bearing for you?
It doesn't for me, but it might for management. Because that I don't know if they are still, high on him. If they're still sort of looking at it and like, well, we have him at this tier, right? But like for me, again, it's such a replaceable player, right? Like if you, I'm not worried about losing, a 25-year-old winger who hasn't landed in the NHL yet. So again, very replaceable player. And just because you traded a player who had a little bit of pedigree to him, even though he might not, pan out very well either, I don't think that should influence your decision, right? You've already paid it. It's sunken cost. It's over. Focus on what you have now. And in my opinion, I still think Cole Lind is your best bet out of that group to maybe have a future, albeit quite a slim chance.
Yeah, you make a really good point actually about we know what Highmore is, but we don't know fully what Cole Lind is. And whether you say, well, I'm over the fact that we traded him for Gaudette. You could say, yes, Cole Lind is one of the guys that we drafted. It'd be nice to see him succeed. I have a lot of time for your argument. I really do. I do think that because of what you hinted at, Jim Benning might say, oh, it looked pretty bad if we lost Matthew Highmore for nothing. That's, of course, if Seattle takes him. So that might be enough to make them, sway them to protect him with their number 7. But I think the point is that we both made abundantly clear, you're not losing a high quality player with the 7th, protected pick and then the resulting exposed picks, unlike other teams that aren't able to protect all their great forwards. Yes, it's fascinating. And you're right, it's only a month away. It's going to sneak up on us pretty quick, actually.
The Canucks aren't going to get Toffoli'd again, right? They're not gonna lose Matthew Highmore in the expansion draft, and he's gonna go to Seattle and score 30 goals next year. It's not gonna happen. So it's such a non-issue that again, I would so much rather the Canucks go and try to get someone worth protecting with that pick, right? Again, even if it costs you Cole Lind, because again, while I'm saying Cole Lind is probably your best bet of the bunch, I'm not saying he's a great one. I'm just saying he's at least got maybe a 10% chance instead of these other guys who are in the sort of single digits, so to speak.
Yeah, it'd be fascinating. And we don't have the luxury, or maybe the non-luxury, of having to worry about losing a quality player. So we'll see. I don't know, Parker, if I'd be that confident if someone told me that, hey, Jim Benning's the one that's going to make all these decisions. But I've heard assistant GM Chris Gear speak on a number of occasions, and I think he's very bright. And not that Benning's not bright, but I think the more bright minds you have in the room, the better. And maybe it's someone else driving that bus, but at least giving Benning pause to explore those kind of things for sure.
Yeah, it's again, I agree with that. Chris Gear, at least the personability, like the speaking, I guess the ability to public speak, much more reassuring, right? To have a guy like that in the room, especially now that we've seen him and he's a little more front facing in the last couple of weeks at least. So I'm not too scared. I think this one's hard to mess up at the end of the day, right? Like I think the Canucks have been put in a position where it's not like you're choosing between two really good players. You're not in the position Florida was in a few years ago with Vegas, where it's like you're trying to make side deals to save certain players, and these players that you give up end up being, Marchessault and Smith and are, two top end players in the league. We're talking about, Zach McHugh, Matthew Highmore, Cole Lind, right? We're not talking about, Tyler Toffoli, William Karlsson, things like that.
Right. Very good. Okay, so we've talked about who the Canucks will protect. Having said that, then, who do you think the Canucks are going to lose, depending on obviously who they protect?
So let's say we don't know who's going to be, protected with that 7th spot. Let's say, Highmore's available, Lind, McEwen, Gadjevich, all 4 of them. Even, I don't think Madison Bowie's much of a threat to get taken. So let's say, Highmore, I think they would go with a Cole Lind, right?
Yeah.
You have him as an RFA forever. Again, it's, they could take a Zach McEwen, but there's a million Zach McEwens out there, right? Like they can just go find someone else to fill that gap. Gadjevich has a bit of, scoring potential we saw in the AHL. So he might, have a shot there. Being like, he could be someone who, on an expansion team where everyone's basically a third liner. He could basically get a chance to, maybe a little bit of power play time, just standing in front of the net, things like that. He could slot in there. And then, I think it's between Lind and Gadjevich, and it really comes down to not what they've shown, but what they could show. And I think Cole Lind is probably the safest choice for Seattle to take. Pretty easy to sell. Guy who should have been a first round pick in theory, who fell to the second round, and we got him for nothing. And if you're Seattle, you're taking a bunch of guys who are, late 20s, early 30s, probably in the expansion draft. It'll be nice to have, a 22, 23-year-old, right? You got to build up, you're building up a prospect system from scratch, right? You haven't had 4 past seasons of draft picks like all these other teams have. You're starting basically with a bunch of, third liners, and 1 year of draft picks that are, 2-3 years away from making a difference. So if they can get someone like Cole Lind, who's a few years into that development cycle, that could help.
Absolutely. No, I agree with your Cole Lind assessment. And you got to remember too, if the Seattle Kraken are picking from every team except the Vegas Golden Knights, they'll have 30 players at the end of that expansion draft. But of course, your active roster is only 23 players. So already, and that's presuming all 30 make the team, 7 of them are going to have to be at least start in the minor leagues, wherever their farm team is. And they might even let a few go. They'll take some walk-ons, sign some college players. So it'll be interesting to see how Seattle builds their roster. But I think you and I both agree they're not going to build as quickly and as well as Vegas did. I think GMs, as we've talked about before, have learned their lesson. So we'll see what happens in about a month's time. It'll be exciting. At least our rival, from a geographic perspective, will have some players that we can actually talk about.
Yeah, no, that'll be a super fun time. And it'll be interesting to look around the league, and that sort of, I think like 4 days before we'll get the protected list or something like that.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun, right? Because then you can really start speculating with because like everyone's been speculating for the last year, right? But over that year, it's the whole protected lists are way different from a year ago. So that'll be, a year ago we could have had this conversation, be like, oh yeah, Tyler Toffoli's on the Canucks protected list, right? So, it's now that we're actually in this sort of final stretch, we're going to have, the solid lists available, hopefully publicly, and we can go through each team and be like, oh yeah, they're going to take this guy and this guy and this guy. And then you can start to piece together what this team might look like and what they might actually do next year in the Canucks division.
Yeah. Well, there's a video idea for you if you want to put together Seattle's projected roster.
Yeah. I'm sure that'll be something I do.
Sounds good.
For sure. Yeah, definitely interested. And it's going to be, a little drive down to Seattle next year and check out the new arena down there.
Oh, that would be fun. That'll be a lot of fun for sure. Absolutely. All right. I think we did a good job with that expansion draft topic. What else is next? What's next?
Well, I do want to touch on this hockey game that's on right now. It's 8-0. Shout out to Luke Shen. For scoring a goal down there to make it 8-0. But yeah, man, what a disaster that is for the Islanders tonight. Let's move on. So you put in here potential Sedin's announcement, maybe on the timeline.
So we haven't heard anything aside from maybe was it Parker 2 or 3 weeks ago now, where there seemed to be a lot of buzz, and a lot of momentum, and their agent showing up on Donnie and Dolly, and people talking about it. They're going to be very heavily involved in the Abbotsford franchise, or they're going to be doing this. And then it kind of died down a little bit. And then the biggest news was what we broke down last week is the Canucks new coaches, the 8 changes they made or whatever. So apparently this announcement is still I actually thought they were going to do it on June 15th. Which is the 10th anniversary of Game 7. I thought they were going to try and deflect, but no, that day came and went, like many days since then. So I guess we're still waiting. And I get what I want to throw out to you and to the people in the chat is, ultimately, what do you think their role is going to be? Is it some new title, or is it going to be taking over something, or I don't know. Yeah, but I think they'll do fine, whatever they do. It's just a matter of, and lastly, I was just going to say, and I think that's why it's taking some time, because they are so thorough, they are so intentional, they're so deliberate that they probably want all the ducks in a row rather than flying blind, which I think Trevor Linden had to do a little bit, but they've learned their lessons for sure.
Yeah, I think they're basically just gonna be Swiss Army knives, or I guess Swedish Army
Swedish-
knives.
yes, of course.
So like they're gonna be, because I feel like these are two guys who are good at everything they do, right? Like,
Yep.
whether it's dancing in a Pepsi commercial, or being two of the best hockey players in the league, they just excel regardless of what they're doing. And like at this point, you could make them do anything, right? It's like, all right, hey, power play is going at like 12% right now. Get in there and just go in there, run a practice, right? And let's try to shake something up. Let's get some new eyes on it. Or hey, we got a prospect in Abbotsford who's struggling. Why don't you guys go down there and just work with him for the day? So that's sort of the on ice side that they could do. But even from a management perspective, I'm sure they have a ton of respect around the league, whether that's making the occasional phone call, or I don't know if scouting anything is on the table, but like I feel like these are two guys you could put in any role and they will do fine, and they'll be helpful just because they've done it all before, and they're very smart people.
Yeah. I agree with you. We know that they are built, they are engineered to succeed, so to speak. And I think it's gonna be more than just brand ambassador or whatever. Swedish rep. No, I'm just kidding. That sounds like a great high school student council position or something. But I think it will be something like consultant to this or assistant this. Yeah, I have no clue actually. Now that I'm trying to spitball all these names, obviously I have no clue what the names are. Well, I know there's a CEO. I know there's a president. Well, we don't have one. Oh, co-presidents?
Yeah.
Too high maybe.
Maybe they can take over for Crazy P in the stands, and we can just have the Sedins like one on either side of the ice with the drums and just having a great time.
That's true. Leading the Viking
so
clap.
much better.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
No disrespect to Crazy P.
Yeah, bit of a mismatch.
He scares me every time though. Like,
and he just pops out. Yeah.
Wait, because my seats were like a row in front of like the tunnel of our section. So he just comes through, just smashing the drum right like left ear. Yeah. It's like, whoa.
Yes.
So
yeah,
my
season ticket partner is Mike. He's the one that I split the seats with. But then the pair beside us, his name is Jens. I talked about him quite a bit. He does the best Crazy P impression. So
that's great.
I will not do it justice, but it's pretty funny.
Yeah, so
Crazy P's got the Lions to go back to. He needed a place last year because no beats Lions, but now at least he's got the Lions games again.
It is more of a football experience for him, I would say.
I think so.
But yeah, so we're in the Sedin's Irfan Ghaffar at Sportsnet put out a tweet yesterday yesterday evening saying, worst kept secret is the Canucks hiring Daniel Sedin in front office roles. Believe the team makes an official announcement at some point this week. So whether that's, in the next couple of days, it's Monday today. So probably like, Wednesday, something like that would be my guess.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, they could still play on this team right now, I bet, right? Like these guys are still running marathons basically. And I was listening to Halford and Bruff, and he was like, yeah, I was golfing, and like they ran past me like next to the golf course on the road. It's like they're just always active and always running. So
that is funny.
I think think of everything you bring them in for, right? Bring them in on the first day of training camp and have them just like beat people at drills and be like, yeah, you guys got to get your act together, because these guys who retired 3-4 years ago are just skating laps around you. And I think they still could.
No, and then yes, and if we were signing Alex Edler's there, and then he's saying, "Why are the Sedins going way faster than I am? We play at the same." Yes,
yeah,
I'm sure they're in phenomenal shape still. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely. So that'll be good.
Too.
That'll be a fun bit of news that hopefully comes through this week. Other than that, I
think we could sneak in the app. Yeah.
Sorry,
you first.
No, I refuse.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say, I guess we could sneak in the Abbotsford talk before we hit the halfway point, if you want to lead that.
Sure. Yeah. So we talked about this a little bit last Monday, that the names were going to come out Tuesday, and they did. They came out on Tuesday morning. So basically the options, they're still undecided on whether it's Fraser Valley or Abbotsford. If it's a name that starts with A, Abbotsford works a lot better. I think Fraser Valley sounds kind of cooler on a lot of them though. So they came out with, I think, 10 names, and they sent these out to the Abbotsford season ticket holders. And they were Aces. So it'd be Abbotsford Aces, Arrows, Avengers was on this list. Now, it's a fire name. Like that's a sick name, but there's no way they're gonna get the rights to Avengers, right? Like they're not buying that from Disney. Aviators, Canucks, terrible. Don't like it's so boring. Golden Eagles, that's literally the name of the Aquilini's blueberry company and their golf course is Golden Eagle up in Pitt Meadows. Okay. So it's an advertisement, so I hate it. Pilots, call back to their Junior B team in Abbotsford. Okay. Millionaires, something like the Fraser Valley Millionaires would be pretty cool. Sockeyes, that makes me think Seattle. And Falcons.
Makes me think Richmond. Yeah.
So what was the last one? Sockeyes. And then Falcons, which would be something like
Falcons, okay.
Fraser Valley Falcons, I would assume.
Right.
And then Chris Faber tweeted out that he had someone tell him that it was basically down to Aviators, Canucks, and Golden Eagles. Now, if it has to be one of those three, it better be Aviators, in my opinion, because
you already said
Canucks and Golden Eagles are just lame at this point. But if you could choose from any of those names, which one would you pick? Any of the 10?
Any of those names, any of them. I did a quick Zoom gathering with some of my members, and I have to go with my man Justin. He likes the Abbotsford Aces.
That's my pick too.
And oh, really?
Yep.
Yeah, and I know Justin was saying it just sounds sharp. He says, you can think of it in a positive, constructive way, like aces, like they're good, like anytime you ace something. Or you can look at, you call your healthy scratches your black aces. I'm not sure you're not glorifying that, but yeah. And I think of cards. I think of poker and blackjack and all. Oh, blackjack doesn't matter. Oh no, black aces are important. Blackjack, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways, and everyone wants to be an ace. You want to get an A. I like that name actually, and it's nice and short. It's catchy. I like it for all those reasons.
And it kind of has a bit of an air name to it, right? Like Aerial Ace, like it's sort of a, there's Ace Combat was a flying video game. Aerial Ace is a Pokemon move.
Okay.
So there's it does
and
have.
Rome just said in the chat, yeah, an ace is a fighter pilot with at least 5 kills. See, I didn't know that.
There you go. So yeah, it's a cool name all around, and it sounds really clean, right? Aviators is like, I think it's a cool name, but I don't think it's as sharp, right? Like Aces, like Abbotsford Aces, like it's just like a clean. Yeah, I just really like it, but apparently that's not one of their top 3. But hopefully, maybe that maybe that fan survey that they sent out to the season ticket holders, a little bit of focus grouping. Maybe Aces will come through as the winner there.
If I was an opposing player, Parker, not that these 25-year-old millionaires get intimidated by the name of the team that you're playing against, but I think like an ace sounds way more intimidating than an aviator. What, don't you?
Yeah. Aviators are sunglasses. Also like arrows, like that's a chocolate bar, guys. Like that's you can't do something that's going to give other teams the opportunity to think of it as something different, right?
Yeah.
So aviators, it's gonna be like, oh yeah, we're flying and cool, and they're like, oh yeah, your sunglasses, and it's like it just kind of kills your whole vibe.
Exactly. Arrow, you eat your at Halloween time. Exactly. I hear what you're saying. You hinted at this whole Fraser Valley versus Abbotsford thing. So you like Fraser Valley? You like the name of that better?
It depends. If it's I'd prefer Abbotsford Aces over I think all of them. But if it were something like the Millionaires, then I think Fraser Valley sounds way cooler. Or the Falcons. I think Fraser Valley sounds cooler. It really depends on the last name you go with. They kind of have to work together.
Sure. That's true. And part of me, Parker, was going to say, well, at least Abbotsford is a city, or township, whereas Fraser Valley is like a geographic area. And part of me was saying, well, who's going to know where Fraser Valley is? But then none of us knew where Utica was, I guess, before the Canucks went there. So
and no one other than people that live here know where Abbotsford is. Yeah, right. Abbotsford is a city, by the way. Give some respect to Abbotsford.
I'll give that respect.
People living there. But yeah, so that'll be neat. That should come out. I mean, you think about it, that team's they've got to have a team on the ice in like 3 months, right? Like everything's got to come together in the next 3 months in Abbotsford, and it's a brand new team. They have no marketing, they don't have a name, they don't have a logo, they don't have jerseys, they don't have anything yet, right? It's all, they're really on the clock here to get everything sorted out.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Okay, so we're going to hear a lot of things. We're going to hear about a new franchise name. We're going to hear about the Sedin. So maybe, just maybe, we've hit the absolute valley.
So
No pun
just
intended
come
when it
back
comes
next
to-
week, guys. Like, but yeah, no, I think it's really going to start ramping up, right? We're at that point where it's third round of the playoffs where there's only 4 teams in action. But it's still a little too early to start making moves around the NHL because there's still 4 teams playing. And then there's a Stanley Cup final. The Stanley Cup final will start to see some action around teams that don't have anything going on, especially, we are in a condensed offseason, right? It's the end of June almost already. Stanley Cup final is going to go, into July, which, is only a few weeks away from the NHL draft. So that's, it might feel a little slow now, but we're going to get that big time crunch in about 2-3 weeks. That's just going to be very exciting.
That is a great point, Parker, about the condensed offseason, because everything is, it feels like a month later than usual. The Stanley Cup finals, free agency, draft, all those things. But the season is only starting 10 or 12 days later. October 12th is what they're aiming for. So instead of October 2 or 3. So we're a month behind now, but we have to make up those 3 weeks to be ready on October 12th. So you're right. From basically the middle of July on, it's going to be a lot going on in a little period of time. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, for sure. Well, there's still a little bit more we can talk about for the Canucks. And that is, we are going into the off season, and the Canucks have holes. You look at their lineup and you have to start having conversations about, do you move JT Miller to the third line so you can actually have 3 decent lines, but then you have like no good supporting cast on your second line. And these are problems that either teams that are very deep have, or teams that have no depth have. Because if you're a very deep team, then you can start, spreading the wealth a little bit across your top 3 lines. But if you have nobody, it's like, hey, we need someone that can, drive a line, for 15 minutes a night, which the Canucks don't have.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy when someone says, what's the biggest off-season need for the Canucks? You could argue they need a top 6 winger, or a third line center, and another good D-man. Like, that's a lot. That's a lot to fix.
You could name everything, honestly. I mean, goaltending wise, like, let's say they find a way to get rid of Holtby's contract. Well, then you need a backup goalie, right?
Yes, that's true.
Let's say, the Canucks need defensemen. Could the Canucks use a second line winger? Absolutely. A third line center? Absolutely. Fourth liners that make less than $3 million? Absolutely. There's so many. Again, like we said, the Canucks are playing games in 3.5 months, like regular season. The NHL draft is a month away. We're running out of time here. There's really not a lot of time to figure out who you're exposing in the expansion draft, who you're drafting in the actual draft, who you're picking up in free agency, who you're going after. Are you going to trade for people? Are you, like, there's so many things. Jim Bang's the general manager of the Vancouver Canucks. There's no president, so he also is overseeing Abbotsford right now, in theory. Like, there's so many operations things that need to get done, and the Canucks need to start working pretty quick here.
Yeah. Do you want Travis Hamonic back? That's question number 1. And question number 2, related. Does it worry you that he says that he's open to going to any team, not just a Western Canadian team, or is that part of regular business?
I feel like his agent might have given him a little bit like, hey, stop saying you're only going to Western Canada, because that's how you're only going to make $1 million again, right? Say you're going to go everywhere. Maybe take these offers a little more seriously. The Travis Hamonic experiment went pretty well, and I think if you want to be a team that is maximizing your salary cap value, those are bets that you just sort of have to keep taking, right? You have to somehow do this every year you compete, but you have to find a guy who maybe had like an off year, or maybe he's a little cheaper than you expect him to be. Sign him for 1-2 years at that cheap contract and hope he overperforms. Kind of like Travis Hamonic did this year, right? What do you make, 1.25? He was better than 1.25. Maybe even if he was only worth like $2 million on the ice, right? Well, that's $1 million basically that you have in your pocket, to help compete. The problem is now Travis Hamonic is, he's 1 year older. He wants security, I'm sure, right? He would love to sign like a 5-year, 6-year deal at maybe even if it's like $3 million a year, right? $2.5 million a year, whatever it may be. Like at that point in your career, you're 30 years old. Security is huge, right?
Yes.
So at that point, I don't think the Canucks should be the team that gives that to him. You need to sort of keep going and trying to find more cheap bets that you can take and hope you keep hitting on them.
Yes. No, well, I like him a lot. I think he helped settle Hughes down. I think he helped settle the entire D-core down in March when he really hit his stride coming back from his rib injury. But you're right, Parker, the money and the term has to make sense for a team that doesn't have a lot of money, at least for this upcoming season. Yeah. Lots to think about.
And
hey, do you think?
I was just going to say, even with the expansion draft coming up, right? You might be able to grab a D-man.
Yeah.
You know, you might be like free agency might have some real options here, where you can find a guy, right? Like if you're trying to fill like a 5-6 defenseman hole, you need a guy who can go out there and not kill you for 14 minutes a night, right? He doesn't have to be great. He just needs to go out there and be good enough that he's not going to cost you a bunch of games, right?
Yep.
And Hamnick did a good job of that. And that's what you want for $1 million a year. Now go find another one.
Exactly. Well, before we get to a certain anniversary I want to talk about regarding the Canucks, we almost forgot to go to our favorite segment. So let's start it off by saying this. Almost forgetting to do our favorite segment. Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Having a tight series, battling hard, being the underdog, battling against the Tampa Bay Lightning to have a 2-2 series tie, having excellent goaltending along the way, and then getting shut out 8-0 in Game 5. Don't do that.
Yeah,
that's terrible.
Yeah, Matthew Barzal, who many of you guys saw, cross-checking Jan Ruda in the face at the end of the second period. Maybe don't do that. So you guys probably figured out now for the next 2 or 3 minutes, just put them in. We're going to read as many as we can in the chat box. This is the time where you can tell us basically what are some things where you should not do that. Fangirl starts us off saying Islanders not scoring a goal in a playoff game, a pivotal playoff game nonetheless. Don't do that. I agree, Fangirl.
Yeah,
you gotta score.
A Game 5 in the third round of the playoffs is tied series tied 2-2. It's one of the most important games you'll ever play, right?
Yeah.
For these guys, like especially for the Islanders who haven't been there in a while, right? Like you're literally this is the pivotal moment, right? You win this game, you're basically home free. You get to go home next game and try to win the series there, and you get 2 shots at it. If you, let's say you lose it in overtime, it's like, oh, this sucks, but you know what? We kept it close. We can win 2 games in a row against this team.
Yes.
Losing 8-0. How do you come back in 2 nights? Come off the plane, go back to your home rink and think, oh yeah, we had a good shot tonight. Yeah, both of our goalies got shredded on Monday, but we'll be fine.
They need a good start, or that game will be over pretty quick, I think.
Yeah, and then Tampa Bay is just off and running against whoever they end up with in the Cup final.
Absolutely. Nux fan number 29. I told a story about how do I keep this? No, I'll keep it clean. But it was very warm, so I was playing ping pong without a shirt on, and my son took advantage and whipped a ball at me. Parker nailed me right here so hard that there's a mark now. It's like anyways, yes.
The power slam. Love it.
Exactly. So Nux fan number 29 says, getting injured in ping pong. Don't do that. I agree with that. Thank you for
dangerous sport. You got to wear your chest protector.
Can you imagine? I show up for the next ping pong match wearing all my hockey gear.
Looking like Iron Man, just like all suited up. Lucas, drafting Owen Power and then likely letting your captain go. Don't do that in regards to the Buffalo Sabres. Yeah, this is an interesting saga. What do you think Eichel's back on opening night? I don't.
No. If I had to bet, and I try not to gamble, I would bet against him being there. What do you think?
I mean, it's really like the team doesn't have to get rid of him, but I mean, the thing is, like, if they do, like they're already so bad. Like there's no glimmer of hope. There's no light at the end of the tunnel there. And that's the issue, right? And if you let's say you get rid of Eichel, let's say you get 4 first-round picks. Okay, that'll be great in 3 years, right? Like literally, it's like you're literally telling your fans like, well, we're starting over. Sorry about the last 14 years or however long it's been since we made the playoffs. We'll try again in about 4. See you then.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's just a disaster.
It's so, man, that's going to be one team to watch between the first overall pick, between Eichel and Reinhart, it's tire fire.
Yeah, would be an interesting team to be covering. But I'm glad I am not a fan of Buffalo.
All right, I'm going to go into, speaking of draft, can I tell the quick 2-year anniversary story? Is that cool?
Please.
Awesome. And Rome says, at least the ping pong mark isn't on the middle of your forehead. Yeah, thanks. Although it's quite shiny and quite a big target. So 2 years ago today, June 21st, 2019, I was sitting in Rogers Arena as part of the audience for the NHL entry draft, the one that we hosted. And then that was part of a crazy weekend, actually, because I went to the draft that night. I volunteered all night at Sean, my eldest son's after grad, came home, showered, and then we went back to Rogers Arena for the second day. And that was the day we picked Niels Höglander, which was pretty good. That was the day that the JT Miller trade was announced, which was exciting. But we all remember that exactly, actually, 2 years and about 2 hours ago, Stan Smeel goes up to the microphone, thanks the Canucks fans for being such amazing hosts, right? Helping them be amazing hosts of the league. And Parker, do you remember how he pronounced our draft pick's name?
Yeah, it was like Vasiliev Podslovens or something. It wasn't great.
And we were joking around before we pressed record that you think they kind of practiced the guy's name, right? Like I know they had to kind of make changes on the fly, but still.
Right. Like let's say you had this guy on your draft board, which clearly you did. Maybe you didn't expect him to fall there, but I have the video pulled up just on my screen. The Canucks have like 15 guys on stage. Like I'm not exaggerating. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 guys are on stage for the Vancouver Canucks. And they send Stan Smeel out there, who has likely, I guess, has never seen this name before.
Yeah, it's like they handed it on
it's like Jim just like scribbled it down as fast as he could. Like maybe he like crossed a name out and like put a different one down and like, here you go. And it's like he can barely read it. But like these guys must have been in meetings for months discussing these guys, right? Like you'd think they would know I think they know the guy's name.
And the crazy thing is, I also rewatched the video. His mess ups didn't start with actually his name. He actually said, instead of St. Petersburg, right, the city in Russia, he actually said Saints Petersburg. Now, that's not the end of the world. It's not a unforgivable mistake, but you knew it was going to be rough when he couldn't even say he couldn't say the word saint. He said saints.
Right. So. It's like when someone like kind of stumbles. And then like say someone's running and they like kind of trip over something and then they try to save themselves and they end up like kicking themselves forward and they tumble. And that he sort of did that with his words.
That's a good analogy. So I will say this, Parker, when they announced Podkolzin's name, I was happy. A lot of people were, but a lot of people were upset because Cole Caulfield was still on the board. Matthew Boldy was still on the board. Those were the two, Newhook Krebs. But really, it was those United States development teams, the development team guys, Boldy and Caulfield, that people were excited about, maybe thinking the Canucks were going to get. So you can hear it. You can audibly hear the visceral reaction. It's a mix of cheering, booing, almost like awestruckness. It was a quite fascinating, actually. And I don't know about you. I'm excited to see this guy play. I think he's going to have the same kind of impact that Höglander had, and we need a guy on a $900,000 contract having that impact.
Yeah, I remember going into that. I remember that in every mock draft, it was Boldy getting projected to the Canucks. Like it was like basically everyone was like, "Yeah, Boldy should be the guy around 10." Then we get there, and Caulfield was still available. Krebs still available. Man, Caulfield's so good, as we're seeing in Montreal. But yeah, and I mean, like we've said, like the Canucks had, or Podkolzin was ranked like number 3 the year before. It's also funny. I'm on the video from 2 years ago, the clip, and I just scroll into the comments. Your third top comment. so good for you getting up on there.
What was I doing on the Canucks YouTube channel? I should have been just paying attention to the draft.
You're trying to get that promotion out there.
What did I say, Parker? Did I say something smart?
You said could be a steal, a Russian forward picked number 10. Russian forward, number 10. It's meant to be. So
that's
little
not my finest work, but-
little Pavel Bure reference, but you got
Thank you. At least
you
you
got
got-
164 likes on it, so that's pretty good.
People are just excited about it. Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's cool. Did you watch it? Were you watching from home? Were you watching?
Yeah,
do you
I
remember?
was
Did you actually-
going to go to it, but I think I was busy the day tickets went on sale, and I just didn't grab them,
Yeah.
and I just was like, well, I mean, it can't be that exciting at the end of the day.
Sure.
Yeah. It's a fun experience, I'm sure, but it's like, at the end of the day, it's announcing names and like all the interviews are on TV anyways.
Right.
So that was fine. So
Parker, here's a funny story. Funny story for you. That year, the players that were drafted were born in 2000 or 2001. Okay, so that was the kind of like the prime, right? Early 2001. So I brought my son Sean, who was born in 2001. In hindsight, we thought we should have dressed him up in a suit, right? And just be in the stands, right?
Yeah.
Just almost like eagerly. And then anytime anyone's name was chosen, just for him to stand up and just start hugging me and stuff.
Yeah.
And just, we might get thrown out, but I think that'd be pretty
You get
funny.
a lot of cheers though. Like everyone would be like, yeah, like sweet. That's so cool.
Yeah. Why a Russian name, but why is this Asian kid standing up?
Yeah. Oh, we didn't know it was most people in there probably didn't know it was a Russian name when it got read out. Couldn't tell at all. But yeah. No,
that's funny.
Good times.
All right. What do you want to go? Let's do 3 or 4 more minutes before we go to the people. What do you want?
Sure.
One more topic.
Let's quickly touch on the playoffs, I guess, because that's all
Okay.
we have left on our list. One more Apple
Sure.
Podcast review that I wanted to read.
All right.
All the way from down under in Australia, G3 Far says, enjoying the shows, 5-star review. You both bounce off of each other really well. Also nice to listen to two guys that don't scream into the mic constantly. Shame you only have one show a week, though. You're getting a following down here in Australia and with the Canucks fans down under. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much, G3. We appreciate it. That's really, like, it's just so cool. The fact that we literally, like, had one guy on Twitter respond to me saying, because I think we mentioned we were number 1 in Taiwan at that point, and a guy's like,
We've since dropped, but yes.
and a guy was like, do you have any listens in Australia? And I was like, it's like, I sent a little screenshot, it's like less than 1%. He's like, I'll fix it. And that got us like up the Australia rankings a fair bit, and now we've got people reviewing from Australia. So crazy.
All we need is like one of those type of people in every country in the world now.
Yeah, wherever you are, start telling your friends. Just get that promotion going for us.
Awesome. So we're going to talk about, playoffs.
Yeah, only two series to talk about, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the one that just went down today, Islanders Tampa Bay. It's been a pretty close, even series. And then Tampa Bay just turned on the Jets and decided not to let up and just tried to kill any morale the Islanders might have had in this game. Not very often you see a Barry Trotz led team allow 8 goals in a night.
Yeah. It's crazy. And you look at the Tampa Bay roster, we don't have to go through it now, but you just know you can rattle off 8 or 9 forwards that are amazing, and we can't even fill a top 6, right? It's just it's sad actually for us.
A little bit. Yeah, I mean, both of these series are wild, right? Like they're two series that in round 1, if you had told me the Islanders are good, but I didn't think that they'd be, down, like I didn't think they'd be tied 2-2 in the third round against Tampa Bay. I wouldn't have said that. And if you had told me that Montreal would be tied in a series with Vegas, I would have said you're crazy. There's no way. And I mean, Vegas is just getting goalied out of their mind, right? They're just having flashbacks to Thatcher Demko last year.
No, for sure.
Just on a whole nother level with Carey Price. And that's been such a fun series because it's been so even, so tight the whole way through.
Yeah. So let's spend a couple minutes on Vegas, Montreal. But before that, really quickly, there's no way Tampa loses both of the next 2, right? Like they're going to win at least one of the next 2, if not the 6.
We say that, but I mean, everything that we say ends up going wrong. I think, I don't think that there's any way that the Islanders win the next 2 games.
Okay.
Like
we both agree.
It would be different if we were talking about a Carey Price in their net, right?
Yeah.
Like we're seeing in Vegas, Montreal. Like I can see Montreal winning 2 of the next 3 games just because the guy they have in net, right? Who has shown that he's just going to steal games. I mean, the Islanders' best goaltender is Ryan Pulock. who made that
Nicely done.
outrageous save 2 nights ago.
Yes.
But like, you know, you're talking about Sorokin and Varlamov, 2 fine goalies. They're good goalies, but I mean, we saw it tonight. Like they're Tampa Bay, like if they get going, you're gone. I mean, if Tampa Bay scores 3 goals, like the Islanders are done in a game.
So we agree that Tampa will win. We're not calling it the East because it's not. We'll win that one. Okay.
Yeah.
So best of 3, obviously game 5, pivotal, our favorite word of the day, Montreal, Vegas. Vegas surprisingly starts Robin Lehner, but now he looks like a genius. If they get blown out, he looks like a fool, but no, that was a good move. So what's going to happen is I will go first. I am not, maybe people won't like this, like hearing this. I am not a big, it's got to be a Canadian team. We got to cheer for Montreal because they're from north of the border, end this 27-year streak or whatever. But I don't like Vegas. Like I don't want them to succeed as quickly as they did. But I'm rooting for Montreal, but I think that Vegas is Vegas is gonna win.
I think that's fair. I think I'm sort of on the same boat. I think Vegas all around is the better team. But I think Montreal has the ability to steal games, which they've shown. I'm in the same boat though. I would rather any of these other 3 teams win over Vegas. And you know, like it's by a mile. I think that Vegas has shown to be a little fast and loose with the rule book, a little dirty at times. I think, man, I hate saying that officiating in any way is biased because I don't usually believe it, right? Every time I see people complain about the refs, it's like at the end of the day, look, they're trying to make this penalties the same amount on both teams. But we have seen consistently in this series that it looks a little sketchy, a little suspicious one way. In that regard, look, I don't like Vegas. I think I like their organization. I think I like that they have a lot of fun down there and it's a sweet environment and all that. I just don't really like their players. I like Mark Stone a lot, but that's about it.
Marchessault annoys me. Annoys you? Marchessault,
man, his Instagram comments last year were great. But at the end of the day, it's, you know, I would much rather Montreal win over Vegas, and then, but yeah, I don't care if Montreal wins over Tampa Bay or the Islanders. Like at that point, I don't have a super rooting interest. I'd probably prefer it if Montreal did, but I'm not going to be upset if they don't. But I would be a bit upset if Vegas won.
Very good. So I guess a week from now on our June 28th show, that will be right at the start of the final. So we can save our predictions till then until we actually know who's playing in the final, I think.
Yeah, that'll be very good to see.
All right. Before we send you off to your hockey game, what's your team called again?
Here for beer.
Here for beer?
Yes, because that's why we're there.
Okay. Well, just be safe. All right.
Yes.
Let's get to the comment section. We got a good, we'll wrap this up in the next 7 to 10 minutes. But we'd love to hear what you guys have to say. So could be anything we talked about here, Canucks related, Sedin's, Podkolzin, filling holes, expansion draft, playoffs, whatever you want to talk about. Oh, wait, why don't you take this one? I'll ask it to you. Fangirl says this. Thoughts on DiPietro and if he'll be ready to possibly play on the Canucks next season, if need be, i.e. if Holtby goes down.
Yeah, so I listened to Kevin Woodley on the radio probably a week ago, and he was mentioning like DiPietro is just going to be I think Ian Clark said the same thing, but he's going to be an NHL player. Like he has this unreasonable drive, and he just competes at this level that no one else does. That, barring his size, barring whatever, like he's going to be an NHL player somewhere. I think he could be a backup right now. Especially on this team right now. Cause again, I don't think expectations are super high. But if we are talking about a team that wants to sneak into the playoffs next year, you're going to need your backup goalie to win you games.
Yes.
I think it'll be really good for DiPietro to get a year in Abbotsford. At the end of the day, he's literally an hour drive away. So if a goalie goes down or something happens, he's literally right there. So I wouldn't be surprised, people get injured. I wouldn't be surprised if we see DiPietro in a Canucks uniform a little bit next year, maybe, played a couple of games. But I think, if he's starting 40 games in Abbotsford, 40, 50 games in Abbotsford, especially after not playing it all this year. Then we'll really know. But it's impossible to doubt this kid, though.
Yeah, I'm with you. I believe that Ian Clark has said, he wants two things. He wants his goalies to be the most competitive and the hardest working, and he sees that in DiPietro. 2 questions about your team. What arena are you playing at tonight?
Planet Ice in Coquitlam.
Nice. That's from Canucks After Dark, who knows a lot about the Lower Mainland, lives in in the interior now. And Lucas was asking if you need a logo done for your team because he does graphic design.
We're good. We have just have Colorado Avalanche jerseys basically that we use that are kind of off brand.
Nice.
Yeah, we're good.
Shiraz.
Go for it.
I'll just do
That's
this one. Is it easier to predetermine? Yeah. Okay. Go for it.
Oh, sure. Is it easier to predetermine whether a player will make the NHL or for goalies? So when you look at a goalie, who is it easier to predetermine? I think at the high end, maybe goalies. You look at all the guys who are like super high up, they usually make it. Although it's kind of the same with players. I think if you go by caliber, right? If you just say like, will they play in the NHL? Then yeah, a goalie in the top 10 is going to play in the NHL at some point. So are the players. Caliber wise though, usually players are a better bet. There's always going to be gems later on. But I mean, if you sort of just go on to like Hockey DB and like look through the draft lists and like look at like 1 through 30, and then you look at the point totals in their NHL careers, they usually go down in about, a descending order that whole way.
Exactly.
Right. Scouts are pretty good at that. Goaltenders though, it's so much more mental, right? It's so much more like if a guy gets the yips, right? Like it's all over. Like some goalies just aren't cut out for it. So I think usually skaters are probably an easier to scout position.
I'd agree with that. But the thing is, goaltending obviously is so important. You don't have a good goalie, you can't keep the puck out of the net, and you need to do that to win. So that's why it's so tricky, man, when it comes to draft. Like, yes, Spencer Knight got drafted a couple spots after Podkolzin, and we know that he's going to be an all-star, right? But even, what's that goalie last year, Askarov or whatever?
Yep.
No, the jury's out on him. They think he's going to be good. So it's so tricky when it comes to goaltenders. And are you the team that's going to pull the trigger on picking a goalie when let's say you only have 5, 6, 7 picks, and you take one on a goaltender, and if he doesn't pan out, that's a huge miss. So when you get a Demko or someone who's not picked in the first round, you're exactly right. That's a gem. That's a bonus, and that's sometimes where you find your best goaltenders. But I agree, if you're a top 10 and there's like the Jesper Wallstedt kid who's going to be really good, you know that you anticipate him to do well. But after that, all bets are off.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's looking like he could, like, we've heard that he could go as high as like 5 in the draft, this goalie, because he's that good. And there's usually one every year, right? There's one every year that's like, yep, this guy's going to be a starter at some point. But yeah, I mean, it's always a shot in the dark though. Goalies are scary, right? They can flip on a dime from being really good to not very good, right? Or the opposite, right? Carey Price in the regular season, not very good. And then in the playoffs, though, he's a machine. So it's all a shot in the dark.
Sure. I'll answer this one real quick from Nicole, because it's a name we haven't seen. Nicole Bogdan, getting my first Canucks jersey, what player should I get? So there's a couple things, right?
Yep.
We number one, we can't tell you who to get. It's who you like. But I do think 2 things you should consider, Nicole, is number one, do you like the player? Firstly, don't make sure it's someone that you do like and you're going to enjoy cheering for and having that player's number and name on your back. But just as important as that, you have to look at how long they're going to be here, because I know I've been caught, my David Booth jersey, I've been caught buying a player on a whim, a jersey of a player, and then not even thinking about his contract or what he's going to do. And then next summer he's gone. Whereas that, especially we might get an announcement in the next month, Pettersson's going to be here for at least 3 and then another 5 years, another 8 years. Hughes will be here for another 5 years. Demko, unless I get everyone can get traded, but Demko signed for 5 years. So I think, get whoever you want, of course. But I think if you look at kind of the status of where they are contract wise, and just does it feel like they're going to be here for a long time? If you don't care and you don't mind spending the $250 and they're only here for a season, that's cool. That's up to you. But I think, at least for me, Parker, those are 2 things I would think about: is, do I like this guy, obviously, and do I think he's going to be around for a bit? Does this jersey almost make sense from an investment standpoint.
Yeah, and that's a tough thing for me to do, right? Because I really like there's a reason that the superstars sell the most jerseys, right? One, because they're the best players, they're the most known, and also there's not much risk of them leaving, right? At least very soon, right? If you bought a Naslund jersey, 20 years ago, or 18 years ago, or whatever, or if you bought a Daniel or Henrik Sedin jersey 15 years ago, like that was a good investment, right?
Yeah.
But meanwhile, I have a Michael Chaput jersey in my closet because I think it's hilarious. So it's there's a balancing act there, right?
Yeah.
Right. I have a conversation piece. That's the only reason I bought it. But at the end of the day, you have to find a player that you sort of connect with. And you might not have one. And in that case, I wait till there is someone who you're just excited to watch every night and sort of even transcends your team fandom, where you can just look at this one guy and be like, I like the way he plays, or however, whatever your criteria is.
Who's going to be your next jersey? What's going to be the next jersey purchase, you think?
The only one, I think Hughes is the main one I'm missing. So I think that'll be probably a safe one. Maybe a Demko as well. I'm not usually a big goalie jersey guy. But I think, again, I'll wait. Hopefully they put out like a new style. That's usually when I like to have like one of every style and then do a name that sort of reminds me of that style.
Well, that's smart.
So that's sort of my thoughts. So I didn't get a reverse retro one this year, but
yeah, me neither.
If they use it a little bit next year, which they probably won't, but
that's a good theory though. I have 8 jerseys that all look the same because they're all from the 2011, 2012, Eric.
I have like 4 of those ones. Yeah.
And then I got one flying skate, my Hughes one. No, that's good. I think I'd go Demko or maybe Podkolzin or Rathbone or Harglander because they're going to be here for a while. But
I always like this sort of, it's fun when you see sort of like a unique, almost like a second liner jersey out in the wild, right? Like whether it's like a Höglander or like we've seen some, Berchi jerseys in the past and things like that. It's like, it's players who you'll eventually forget, but you'll see that jersey at the arena and you'll be like, oh yeah, that guy, like that's fun. Yeah. I think that's always sort of a fun way to do it.
No, for sure. So you're going to win tonight? I
hope so. Yeah, we should wrap up though.
You look ready. I just want to say, you look ready, man.
I'm fired up. It's going to be fun. So yeah, with that, thank you guys very much for hanging out. I know there was a lot more people who asked questions and everything in there, but we're sort of crunched on time tonight. So save your questions for next week. And I know Clay's doing a birthday stream tonight at 11:30 over on his channel, so you can watch him. Watch the calendar flip over for him. So go ask him your questions there. So he has something to talk about. Save
your questions for me.
He has something to talk about for half an hour.
Right. And if I can't answer it, then I'll say bring him next Monday.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys very much for hanging out tonight. If you haven't yet, hit the like button, by the way. If you missed any part of the show, if you came in late, I know that's usually what happens. Some people get the notifications late. Go ahead. You can either rewind this or just go over to your favorite podcast platform. I'm literally going to upload it before I leave. So you just have to log in, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever. It'll be there by the morning. So if you're on Spotify, it'll be there within like the hour. If you're on something else, it'll be there by the morning. So you can listen back to that and go do that because that boosts us up the rankings in Canada and the States and everything. So that's fun. Clay, any parting words?
Yeah, no, thanks, Parker. This has been a nice, I've really enjoyed it the past 2.5 months. And I know you're going to win tonight, just like the Tampa Bay Lightning did. Can't wait to see who's in the finals so we can talk about it next week. Can't wait to hear some Canucks news. And thank you for your friendship. And thank you for the warm birthday greetings. You do well tonight in your game, and I'll do well on my stream that maybe 10 people will come to tonight. We'll see.
I might tune in if I'm still awake.
Okay. I tell you what, if you come, that means I know you won. Don't come if you do whatever you want. Okay. But just come in guns a-blazing if you lose.
Just be mad.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Thank you guys very much for hanging out. As always, this has been Canucks After Dark. We're here every Monday night, usually at 10 p.m. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit like, do all that good stuff. And we'll see you next week.